Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched Killing Eve season 3, episodes 3 and 4. Let's talk about it. So I'm going to be doing this review just like I did my previous Killing Eve review, where we're going to be grouping together the two episodes, and I'm going to be going through the characters one by one so we can talk about where they're at this point in the season. Now, before we get into it, there will of course be spoilers in this review, so keep that in mind. And before we get started, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can catch new videos as I upload them. Without further ado, now let's get into the review. So first of all, let's start off with the titular character herself. Now, a lot has happened since the last time we saw Eve at the end of episode 2. Let's just break this down bit by bit. So in episode 3, we see that Eve is still pursuing what the hell happened to Kenny and the whole mystery surrounding the 12. And she is able to find out that there is this bank account that's associated with the 12 that's also linked to this fat panda, who's one of the victims that we saw in season 1 or maybe even season 2. And we see that she's not working on this alone. She's brought in some reinforcements in the form of Carolyn and Jamie, who used to be Kenny's boss, as well as Bear, who works at this online publication and has been doing a lot of the research for her. So they're all having meetings in Carolyn's bathroom, which I'm not sure if that's fully appropriate, but Carolyn, you do you. She says that she gets the best ideas in the bath, so there you go. And during the meeting, Jamie even points out that there are no biscuits, which, fair enough. Perhaps a few snacks could have lightened the mood a little bit, maybe a few hobnobs or digestives here and there. But really, episode 3 is more about Carolyn, and it really focuses on her journey to finding out exactly what happened to her son and more about the 12 as an organization. So we'll get to her in a minute. But in terms of Eve, the biggest moment that we get in this episode is when she's just innocently sitting on a bus and we see someone approaching her, and of course it is Villanelle, because Villanelle has been sent by Dasha and therefore by the 12 on this mission that we don't really know much about at this point in time. All we see is that her sudden appearance on that bus just shocks Eve beyond belief. She's like, this can't be real. I can't be seeing what I'm seeing right now. And they immediately have this confrontation on the bus and everyone else around them is just over it, like, oh my god, what's going on? No one really complains though, because you don't want to get in the middle of that. But they're essentially fighting in the seats of this bus, and Villanelle definitely has the upper hand because she's a trained assassin. Of course she does. But Eve throws her off by giving her a kiss that literally had me somersaulting out of my bed. I couldn't believe what I was seeing because all this time we know why we tune into this show. It's because of their immaculate chemistry and the fact that they're giving us just a little bit, just feeding us a little morsel of that chemistry in this episode. Of course, we were all freaking out as a result. So the kiss happens, but we don't even get to fully process it because immediately afterwards, Eve makes use of that upper hand that she just got and headbutts Villanelle, and then everything happens so fast, but essentially Villanelle just ends up leaving the bus in this deranged, sort of confused state of mind, and it even manages to momentarily distract her from her mission. But of course she gets it together, she refocuses and manages to get stuff done, which we'll talk about afterward. But in terms of Eve, that kiss was definitely more than just a strategy to win the fight against Villanelle. She's definitely feeling some type of way about it. And then by the end of that episode, we see that little gift that Villanelle leaves her in the form of this teddy bear that has a secret message just for her ears, and it freaks her out because it means that Villanelle knows exactly where she is, and that's never a good thing, which brings us to episode 4, where she's living out of the office of that online publication and she's showering and kind of trying to clean herself and get it together in their bathroom, which is just such a mess. And what makes it even worse is that on that day it happens to be her birthday, so Jamie even points out that, like, that's just so sad, her having to live out of their office bathroom on her birthday. It's just not a great day. And then everyone's noticing the smell around her, like Bear barely even wants to look at her because apparently she smells, and even she knows it herself. It's just a mess. But we do see that someone has sent her a little gift on her birthday, and it looks like things are looking up for her until she looks at that box for a moment and thinks, hang on, I've received a gift before. It's never been good news. And she takes that box and goes straight up to the roof with it, and it's only then that she opens it up to find this fondant cake bus, and immediately she's like, oh no, I know exactly who that comes from. She throws the cake over the roof, but immediately immediately regrets it. Now, I had a couple of theories as to why she looked so distressed when she threw away that cake. First of all, I think maybe it reminded her of Kenny's death and the fact that he was thrown off of that very same roof. And secondly, because I think immediately after she did it, she regretted it because she has those feelings, those complicated feelings towards Villanelle, and she wanted to keep that thing that Villanelle gifted her with, even though she's so conflicted over that relationship because it's so messed up. But at the same time, you just saw that moment where she was like, oh no, I shouldn't have let go, oh damn it. So I don't know which one it is. It might even be a combination of the two, but I think Sandra Oh did such a good job of conveying that conflict within the character. Now, that cake isn't the only casualty of Villanelle and Eve's complicated relationship, because of course we have Nico, who is Eve's now ex-husband. Now, as soon as I saw in episode 4 that they were going to focus on this character for more than 2 seconds, I got a little bit like annoyed. I don't care about please don't dedicate more than 5 minutes to this character a season. But then it becomes very clear why they decided to hone in on this character so much for episode 4, because at the very end, well, we'll get to it. But anyways, Nico is trying to find a new life for himself in Poland, where he's originally from. He's gone back to his roots and he's living out a simpler life where his wife isn't associated with assassins and all sorts of conspiracies that are just too much for him to handle after seeing what happened to his former mistress / girlfriend. And it actually looks like he's thriving in this environment and getting along with his neighbors and doing his work and actually getting some happiness out of it. But then all of a sudden, this simple newfound way of life is interrupted by Eve's arrival, and suddenly all of his problems back in London arrive right at his doorstep in Poland. Now, at first we're led to believe that Nico wanted Eve there because he texted her to come over and really talk, and she's been wanting to talk to him, but he's been avoiding her, of course. And all of a sudden, when he says that he does want to speak to her but he wants to do it in person, she jumps at the chance to get on that plane and go straight to Poland. But then of course it turns out it wasn't Nico who wanted Eve in Poland at all, it was Dasha, and she wanted Eve to be there and present as she watched her ex-husband be murdered by a mysterious being who she would assume to be Villanelle. Now, speaking of Villanelle, when we last saw her getting off of that bus and touching her lips in awe and disbelief, she was out on a mission because Carolyn had very sneakily and cleverly used some of her contacts back in the Cold War days to find out who the accountant was for the 12. And it ended up being this Soviet double agent who was handling all of the 12's money. Now, Sergei is in a little bit of hot water because there is a ton of money that is missing from their accounts. And so Constantine, I mean, everything is just coming together. Constantine pays him a visit to find out exactly what the hell is going on. And at the same time, Carolyn is trying to apprehend him to find out what the hell is going on. Now, Sergei begs Constantine so that he could give him 24 hours to get that money back because he is in deep bleep. And whilst Constantine agrees to that, he is not the top boss here. There are other people above him that are making the decisions, and unfortunately for Sergei, a plan is already on the go to get him out of the picture altogether. So just as Carolyn is about to get this vital information from him and has managed to get him in that car so that she can interrogate him, unfortunately we see Villanelle, who's ready to carry out her mission, and she's dressed as this police officer. She manages to stop Carolyn in her car and then points that gun to her, and for a minute you're like, no, we can't be killing Kenny and Carolyn. Like, we will not have any main characters left. We can't be doing this. But then it turns out that the angle is all wrong for Carolyn because she's aiming straight towards Sergei, and Sergei ends up dead with brains splattered all over the place, and Carolyn ends up with a serious case of PTSD if she didn't already have it from her years of working for MI6. And we can see just how shaken up Carolyn is, because even though, just like I said in my previous review, she's not one to show her emotions are very stilted in that way, which makes her a great spy, by the way, but it also makes it very difficult for her to express her emotions during times like this where so much is going on and so much has happened to her in such a short period of time. And even her daughter Geraldine is like, Mom, please, I'm worried about you. And she gets down on her knees and says, please talk to me about what's going on here. And Carolyn just seems to be so in denial, or at least so reluctant to express her emotions and what she's going through right now. And maybe she's not even capable of doing so. It's just such an interesting character. But it just seems as though with all of this trauma adding up, there's bound to be some sort of outburst, right? But this is all happening on the inside, because on the outside, she's presenting a very calm and collected front. And she goes back to MI6 and asks that guy, her arch nemesis, for her office back. And he's like, well, you don't even know where your office is. And she's like, doesn't mean I don't need it. Get it together. Get me my office. Because clearly they are fumbling the ball when it comes to this whole operation. And now she has the bargaining power, so she gets to ask for whatever she wants. Now let's talk about what Villanelle has been up to. So after it looked like she'd taken a little bit of a break, she'd gotten married, she seemed like she was in a better and happier place. Maybe not really, but that's what she was trying to convince herself. Usher has been giving her orders from the 12 to take on a few new missions, and she's been telling her that she's getting closer and closer to getting the promotion that she asked for. However, Dasha does mention that Villanelle is proving herself to be out of control and very unpredictable, which is something that the 12 do not want in a handler. And I mean, fair enough, because considering what happened to her wife, the fact that she threw that tuning fork at her wife's head and killed her, and then she was about to kill a baby, like her wife's child, and there's that scene where she's trying to contemplate whether or not to kill the baby or the nanny, and the nanny's just like, please, please don't kill the child. No, 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 please don't kill me either. And then you have that whole Eve situation in London and the bus and the kids, and I can clearly see why the 12 are concerned about giving this woman a promotion when she just seems so unhinged. Even if she is good at her job, which she is very, very good at her job, she managed to get rid of Sergei. She managed to get rid of Sergei's wife, which was very sad to me. There is, of course, that scene in episode 4 where she's at Sergei's holiday home in France and she's pretending to be a gardener, and the wife approaches her and she is so upset about her husband's death. She's definitely grieving, and Villanelle doesn't really connect with people on that emotional level like that. Like, she's a psychopath or a sociopath, so she doesn't really do that. But what she does engage in is a little bit of play with the wife. It feels like she's playing with her food before she eats it, and it's actually quite cute and adorable for a moment there, because it feels like she's imagining Sergei's wife as being this mother-like figure who would play around with her in the garden, and why not? They're just having the best of times and she's just trying to scare her hiccups away, right? But Villanelle still has a job to do, and she certainly hasn't forgotten. And so at the end of all that playtime, she ends up choking the wife with a hose. Now, Villanelle wasn't supposed to be in France, and in fact, Dasha had told her to lay low and not travel after the shenanigans that happened in London. But she was doing this in exchange for Constantine finding out more about her family. Because in episode 3, she was really feeling herself. She was like, I'm powerful. I want to exert this power, and knowledge is power. And I have no knowledge about where I come from. So I want to find out as much as I can about my family, which, okay, fair enough. I kind of feel like this is a shoehorned way of finding out more about Villanelle's past. Like, I'm not sure about this approach, because I didn't find it wholly convincing that all of a sudden, because she got a perfume, she would feel like she needs to know more about her family. Like, if you want to introduce her background, I'm all for it. Like, I want that. But the way that they've gone about it is a bit unconvincing to me. But anyways, so that's why she even ended up in France in the first place, despite the fact that Dasha advised her to stay put. And we see that in the promo for the next episode, she ends up in this town in the middle of nowhere in Russia, potentially with her family members. But while she's taking care of things for Constantine over in France, Dasha has other problems to worry about other than babysitting Villanelle herself, because a member of the 12, or a representative of the 12, has come to meet her, and they are not happy with the way that Villanelle is working, and they are confronting Dasha for that and telling her, if you want to go home, back to Russia, back to the applause, back to the legendary status, you need to do what you're told. You need to get her on board, and you need to do it ASAP. Now, I find this really interesting because in my previous review, I said that I wasn't entirely sure of Dasha's intentions. I didn't fully believe that she wanted to help out Villanelle just so she could go back home to Russia. And perhaps that still is the case, but I think most likely it is the reason why she wants to help Villanelle out, because she's had this trade with the 12. And perhaps further into the season, we'll find out why she was expelled from the country in the first place. Now, the 12 have ordered Dasha to take care of the Villanelle situation by any means necessary, apart apart from killing Eve herself because she's too important and it would raise too many flags and blah blah blah, basically because she's the main character, right? But Dasha uses her initiative and heads straight over to Poland, where she finds Nico, and this is where the whole story kind of converges, because it turns out that Dasha was the one who texted Eve so that she would witness Nico's death right before her eyes. And I really enjoyed the fact that episode 4 explored how Dasha operates on the field and uses her ingenuity to get stuff done. I think there was a parallel between Carolyn and Dasha in the sense of, in episode 3 we saw Carolyn kind of using her espionage skills to milk information out of her previous contacts, whereas in the case of Dasha, she was able to blend into the environment in Poland so well that Nico trusted her, and he ended up suffering the consequences of that, as well as his neighbor or his grandmother or someone who ends up being fed to the pigs. And it also gives you a bit of an insight into how and why Villanelle pursues her kills in the way that she does, in this very unique theatrical manner, because it definitely mirrors some of what Dasha has done in the past. And not to mention that at the end of episode 4 we see that Eve witnesses the death of her ex-husband, and the presumption is that she's going to think that it's Villanelle who committed that crime. And in a previous season it was even said that the reason why Villanelle wouldn't kill Nico is because she knows that it would take things too far. Like, she ended up killing Nico's girlfriend but not him, because that would just be a step too far, and she knows that Eve would never forgive her for that. So now that Dasha has created this wedge between them, as it was ordered by the 12, it's really interesting to see what will come out of it. Although I will say, I hope they don't drag that storyline out for too long, because at the end of the day, like I've said in my previous review as well, what we come to see when it comes to killing Eve is the relationship between Eve and Villanelle. If there are odds for the remainder of this season, it's just going to get so frustrating, because at the end of the day, I do not care that much about the 12. Like, I want justice for Kenny, hashtag justice for Kenny all day, every day, fine. But when it comes to finding out about the 12, like, yes, it's interesting in the scope of the story, but what I come to see is Villanelle and Eve together. Don't get it twisted. So if we're doing this whole fighting thing for the rest of this season, I'm going to be annoyed. I'm going to get pissed. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Killing Eve season 3 episodes 3 and 4, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of these episodes down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.